Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Hey everyone, welcome to tonight's live. Today is Sunday, August 11th. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York session time. We're going to go over a couple of different news events first throughout the entire week using Forex Factory. But if you did see like last week we did rally when it came to like Bitcoin. And we also did like a small little dump when it comes to NAS. NAS was actually dumping throughout the week last week. So it looks like, once we hit that all-time high and then we got that massive market structure shift on the daily, then we finally started coming down. And then that's the retracement that I was expecting for Q3. It's pretty crazy though. Like when you see stuff like that play out, like perfectly to the T, it's pretty wild, right? So we were expecting that. I was expecting that. A couple of the people in our Discord were expecting Q3 to be a retracement. And it was a successful retracement. The only thing was I was getting a little too antsy. I wasn't waiting for the proper market structure shift. And I was trying to get into it way too early. And I got stopped out a few times. But hopefully you guys were keeping up with this live every single Sunday. And then you were able to identify those points of interest in order for you to get into that position. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the news. Forex Factory. Now, for today's Sunday, we have JPY. It's a bank holiday. So we're not really seeing anything happening tonight during the Asian session. I don't usually trade the Asian session. Some traders do trade the Asian session, but it is what it is, right? I try to stay out of it. For me, it's more accumulation than anything. Now, moving on to Monday. Monday, I have only one red folder news. That's going to be the Aussie dollar. That's going to be in the Asian session for me, the evening. Then we have Tuesday. Tuesday, I have GBP. Red folder news during the London session. And then 1 hour before the New York session, I have USD at 8:30 a.m. Followed by, well, not really followed by, but 10 p.m. my time, Eastern Standard Time. During the Asian session, we have the New Zealand dollar, the Kiwi. Wednesday, I have 1 hour before the New York session open, 8:30 a.m. That's the USD red folder, CPI. During Wednesday Asian session, we have the Aussie dollar, employment change, unemployment. Thursday red folder, we see GBP during the London session. 1 hour before the New York session, we have USD. And then inside the evening session, which is the Asian session, like actually half an hour before the Asian session opens during the actual Australian session, right, that no one ever trades. So no one really considers it, right? There's 4 different sessions throughout the day. You have your New York, Australian, Asian, and London, but the Aussie has no volume whatsoever, so no one really counts it. So 7:30 p.m. it's right before the Asian session opens during the Aussie session, which no one really counts. Friday we're looking at GBP during the London session. That's at 2 a.m. And that's pretty much it for the coming week. Let's jump on the charts. Let's check you out on the weekly. All-time high 20,983. Pull back, but not completely. As you can see here on the weekly, we have a liquidity raid down here at 17,372.75. Came back down, retracement, tapped into it, seeked liquidity, broke through our weekly fair value gap 50% mark. The fact is, remember, we marked this area out, that we were waiting for price action to come and test out this area, wick into it, and then come right back up, not break through it. There was no candle closure beyond this weekly fair value gap, meaning that this weekly price action and tap into and pull back is completely valid. We are still bullish, right? We're still going with the bullish momentum. We tapped into the halfway point of this weekly fair value gap, and now we're pulling up. So looks like we're priming to completely destroy this all-time high that's over here. But before we do that, we have a weekly fair value gap over here that we need to fill, break through and destroy. But it's a very important point of interest right here. You're going to see why. So looking left, you're going to see that we did have a previous fair value gap over here on the left-hand side. That was a bullish one. Price action came back down underneath it, broke through it, and disrespected it. But then our weekly fair value gap here was tapped into and it was completely respected, right? Price action broke through it, took out this liquidity over here, this sell-side liquidity, while doing a complete retracement right back up. And it looks like it's priming as a continuation up. Now, this area here, this fair value gap, it's a point of interest. Price action did test it out before. Price action broke through it. This shouldn't really hold too much, right? It doesn't have too much weight. Reason being is when we do the retracement, right? We do the fibs, the top to the bottom. This is below it's in our discount zone. So you can't short the discount zone. So it's not a high quality trade for us. We want it to be above the 0.5 in order to be looking for shorts. So if anything, like this fair value gap that's left over here on the weekly, that's going to be the point of interest that we're looking at. Not this one. So this, if anything, we're going to use it as a support as soon as it breaks through it, and then it comes right back into it. Then we're going to use that pretty much as like a point of interest as an entry, but we're so biased as a bullish position, right? Our bias is going to be bullish for this. So we are going to be seeking the all-time highs. So that's on the weekly, right? So just so you guys can see a little bit better, right? Because it is fractal. On the weekly, tap back into this weekly fair value gap, wick through it, completely respected it, came all the way back up, and now we're priming for this price action to continue upwards. As of now, this is still respecting the higher time frame momentum and the higher time frame bias, which is bullish. Moving on to gold. Wait, before we move on to gold, let me go back into the daily. I got a little bit ahead of myself right there. So right up here, daily, 20,311.5, right? 20,311.5. That is a bearish fair value gap. That is in an area that we would short, right? It's at a premium zone. set your alerts over there. I have my alerts set for that. That's going to be a point of entry for me. If we were to tap into that, I'm looking to be able to short it, but we have to make sure, excuse me, that we're getting a good proper entry into there as well. We're not just jumping into it thinking like, oh, it's going to keep going down, because as you can see on the weekly and on the daily, this is extremely bullish still. It is still very, very bullish. I did mark out this over here, this 4-hour fair value gap 50% mark, because it is above my 0.5 fib retracement. So it is in a premium zone. That could have a really slight pullback, like on a small time frame, intraday trade. So if you're getting into that, be in and out. But besides that, that's what we're looking at, right? So we're looking at 20,311.5 as the optimal entry if we were to short, as long as we have the right confirmation signal, right? As long as we have like a market structure shift, something like that while we're inside there, and then we'll probably write it down. But for the meantime, we are extremely bullish. So seeking in the price action over here as it's playing out, we're looking for bullish positions, seeking this level over here. We're not going to go any lower. We have a 4-hour fair value gap over here. But that's about it, right? That one's at 19,286.75. That's what you're going to be looking at for like a small intraday trade. But this shouldn't really hold because it's really, really close to the 0.5 line. But we'll see how that plays out. Moving on to gold. Gold on the weekly, it's in a range. Gold on the daily, still in a range. I'm going to color this yellow because that's the range. That's usually what I color the ranges. Not really seeing too much. I have this 4-hour fair value gap over here. So if anything, that's the only like real clean entry that I see. We have this fair value gap here, which doesn't give me too much confidence. This one does though. This 4-hour fair value gap. First of all, disrespected this bullish fair value gap over here. Now it became a bearish engulfing candle and a bearish inverted fair value gap. Leaving behind a 4-hour fair value gap over here. Tapped into it. But that's been tapped into and mitigated. So this is actually no good. No bueno. I don't really see anything. These fair value gaps have been tapped into and mitigated. This has been broken through and disrespected. I don't really see too much clean price action, honestly. If anything, this over here, 2444.2 or 2444 flat, you can probably use that as an entry into bullish position. It's not super high probability, but it's the only fair value gap that we have going with the trend, which is on the lower time frames. It's still bullish. Moving on to silver, we're going to go to the weekly. What do we see on the weekly? I was expecting it to pull back a little bit into this bearish fair value gap that we have up there. That one looks like 30.095, 30.15, more or less. We're looking for price action to somehow work its way back up into here. And right now we are playing out inside a fair value gap here. That's a weekly fair value gap. It's been tapped into and mitigated, but it tapped into it perfectly again. And now it looks like it's pulling back and respecting that level. Going on to the daily. Bearish engulfing and also bearish inverted fair value gap. Followed by another bearish fair value gap over here. And it looks like that's price actions respecting that. I don't know. It's not a super clear indication of where price action is going to move. Doesn't give me too much confidence. Go down into lower time frames, like on the 4 hour. I mean, if we're going with the trend, we are bearish. So we're going to tap into this bearish. I was going to say inverted, but no. Because this tiny little fair value gap over here, I'm not really going to consider it. But it's a bearish fair value gap. We should see price action come and test out this halfway point because it hasn't really gotten into the halfway point yet. Test that out. We have a order block over here in this area too. So that's overlapping with this. So price action might even go tapped into the edge of the fair value gap and then continue dumping over here. Set your alerts right here at this halfway point of this 4 hour fair value gap. That's going to be at 28.005. And see how price action plays out from there. Let's go on to Euro. Euro on the weekly broke through this trend line of a bearish momentum, right? So now we're seeking bullish positions. Next buy side liquidity is going to be up here, so it should be rating this area here, 1.12640. Go down to the daily. Let's see what we see in the daily. Daily looks sick. Right over here is an entry for us. We're going to set it right over here. Level we're looking at is 1.08860. And we should be bullish right there, right? So that should be an optimal entry for us. That looks like an overlap as well with the 4 hour. Yeah, it's an overlap with the 4 hour, so that's our optimal trade entry for us. So 1.08860, we're looking for bullish positions, bullish entries. Set your alerts on that. Looking at GBP on the weekly, we have this weekly fair value gap 50% mark here, which got inverted. So we should see price action come back into this area here because it just tapped into this and was mitigated by this bullish fair value gap. So let's mark that out. Color you blue. So it should ping pong off this. Should do boom, boom, and then continuation. Should seek out this liquidity here because this fair value gap here is completely mitigated. Set your alerts over here. That's 1.2866. Set an alert over here as well. 1.2642. We're going to play a little bit safe. Even though on the daily, we can go down to the daily. There's not much giving me too much confidence on the daily. And then on the 4 hour, even less. 4 hour, you can probably use this as a bullish momentum. But over here, this is a bearish fair value gap that was inverted. We can use this as a point of entry and then seek up. So this entry here is 1.2750. That's about it. I'm not seeing too much going on here. Let's check out JPY. JPY is coming back with a vengeance. Boom. This fair value gap over here is tapped into and it's mitigated. We should be seeking now. this market structure over here, which is 0.0070850. Don't see much going on here. Should see price action breakthrough here in order to confirm this momentum going up. Market structure shift to the upside. Set your alerts over here, 0.00688985. Once it breaks through there, we should be seeking this buy side liquidity and then the next buy side liquidity. So this one's 0.0071030. All right. Not a lot of smaller time frame plays, guys. We're going to stick to the higher because right now there's a lot going on in the world, right? There's a lot of wars. It's an election year for a lot of countries. It's one of like the few years where so many different countries are voting for like the presidents, their elections, you know, all these higher power people, right? So whatever officials they have, these elected officials and these higher ranks in the government, right? Because it varies, you know, prime ministers, you know, whatever. Every country has this thing. This is the year where it's a massive amount of that and a massive amount of voters. It's a very, very big global conflicts going on as well. So there's a lot going on. So we're sticking to a higher time frame plays due to the fact that we want that enhanced probability, right? We want a little bit of more security when it comes to these plays. And we want more volume, more strength when it comes to the play as well. So in the meantime, guys, careful with the red folder news and have a great profitable